And or aka my experience with Marvel Studios Ant-Man, like YouTube and stuff loves to say in the beginning, or like every YouTube title ever likes to call these movies Marvel Studios and then the actual names. It's kind of weird. They want to put their logo on fucking like or their thing on everything, but it makes sense since it is the cinematic version of Ant-Man. Anyways, that's right, fellas. Today we're gonna be talking about Ant-Man, the first movie, not the second or the third, but just the first one because that's the one I've seen, and you know that's what we're gonna be talking about. Plain and simple. Anyways, so it starts out with Stark's dad, the first Ant-Man, etc., is different. After that, Scott in prison. So basically, the first scene. Let me explain this better than what my notes did because I kind of had to like kind of rush this bit out because it was kind of going a little fast when this movie starts. Is basically you have the Stark, like basically Tony's dad, the first Ant-Man, and another dude like working on projects in one room or something. They got into like a little bit of a heated disagreement. One of them brought up, you know, the first Ant-Man's wife, aka Hank in this case. But we don't remember that. I beat these rubbers weed. That's what's up, bro. That's what's up. Oh yeah, I need to share this stream. Give me a second. Anyways, my bad for not sharing the stream. I'm back. But basically, in that moment, whenever we got around to, you know, Scott, not Scott, you know, that moment where the movie starts with Hank, Tony's dad, they were all talking, having a big talk, and I won't lie, LinkedIn Park fan JT, hey, what's up, JT? I love Ant-Man. Yeah, I love Ant-Man too, and I want to express why I love Ant-Man. The movie anyway. I want to express why I love the movie and the characters and everything about this first one. You know, I thought it was really cool. But anyways, so basically, like I said, that's how the movie starts with those guys in the room just talking and going through their agreements and arguments and all that other sort of stuff and whatnot. And then it kind of switches to like where Scott Lang is. Basically, he's sitting there in prison fighting everybody. For some reason, in that prison, when you leave, right, I guess they decide to have a fight like with you and one of the biggest guys who can take a punch or whatever, or I don't know. I don't even know if that's how actual prison handles it when you know you're leaving, you're getting out, you spend all your time in there or whatever. But I just remember like being so confused when watching this moment because I'm sitting there like because me and Nick are watching this, I was like, is that how prison works? Like sometimes or jail or whatever. Like I'm not saying that's how it works guaranteed, like every day on a regular, but like I'm just saying like that is a weird way to like transition from the Starks to Scott Lang in prison just fighting one of the biggest dudes in there for the last day of him being in there. And I just found it so weird how they went from that scene to that scene because it was just kind of weird and it kind of reminds me of how Ant-Man's like actually works, like his scenes actually work, like or how the movie is structured. I love Ant-Man. He's so tiny. Yeah. But anyways, so when he gets out of jail, this character named Lewis, I remember Nick fell in love with Lewis so fast because like basically Lewis in this movie, he is the comedy relief character, and he basically one of his things that is so funny about him is whenever he talks, he goes in excessive detail, but he also goes off topic a lot whenever he talks, and he gets so into the moment when he talks about a moment that he goes beyond that sometimes, and it's to the viewers like not like annoyance, but it's just enough to like be like really really funny. And but anyways, back to what I was saying about Lewis, right? But he does that a lot in this movie. He's pretty much the comedy character, so keep that in mind. Lewis and Scott talking about their lives, and Scott has to take care of his kid because Lewis was like trying to tell him in the car ride back home. Basically, he was saying, "Hey, yo, Scott, you know, I got another job for you." And Scott was like, "Nah, man, forget it. I'm not in the mood for no job or none of that shit. I need to take care of my kid. I need to work properly." Because keep in mind, Scott, you know, is an evicted convict, you know, or not evicted convict, but he just got out of prison that same day. And Lewis, his homie, is asking him to do another job that can put him back in prison. And it's like, no, man, no, just no. Like that's why Scott was like, no, I'm a clean man. I'm gonna do this right. And I remember Nick mentioned, Scott in this moment really reminds me of myself because uh, when I got out of there, or not got out of jail, but when I got out of my situation, people wanted me to come running back too. Like my homies, I thought were homies at the time, wanted me to run back into it or get back into it or something or whatever. And to all the people who, shout out to all the people that did something bad. They did their time and they're just trying to be completely different people. Shout outs to everybody that's gone out of prison or jail and decided to change their whole lives and stuff. I hope YU was in jail. No, not me. Talking about the movie slash my homie. As like just an example to kind of mention it. But anyways, Scott getting fired from his job uh, because job at Baskin Robbins because of his past is actually sad as hell and pretty relatable. Because I say it's relatable because I feel like a lot of people get fired on their jobs, like whenever they try to lie about their past or something. Because whenever you try to get a job, my favorite streamer that makes music had a drug addiction. Now he's helping homeless people. Hey, that's what's up, bro. That's fucking what's up. I'm gonna be real. That's what's up. Uh, but because whenever you that just brings up a point I wanted to mention. Like whenever you're I feel bad for these people because it's like whenever you go to jail. I'm reading, like I said, this is my experience on Ant-Man. So, and I have all my notes right here, so I can just read off of it because I don't remember movies. I don't remember. I don't remember a lot of movies, so I always make sure to have notes in terms of movies. In terms of a game, I can remember what the fuck's up, but a movie is kind of like hard for me to remember. Oh my god, that book is so good. Yeah, for real, it helps me out. But back to what I was saying about number 3, my third point I made. I feel like this is so relatable because so many people like struggle to find jobs that do get out of jail, or even people that are not even in jail. I feel like struggle to find jobs or even keep jobs because of one thing they did or two things they did, or for example, they have to. And I feel like this is what's kind of shitty about our world today is for example, like our jobs, like the whole American job system is so ass sometimes because you have to, you don't get the job 9 times out of 10, and it's like once you get that one job, it's like you do everything in your power to try and keep it. And I feel like that's what Scott was trying to do at Baskin Robbins, and he was like, fuck, I need to hide my history, I need to make a fake resume and all that shit so I can get this job. Because basically when you're in prison, no one can get jobs now. Yeah, exactly. Not a lot of people can get really jobs now, which is why they have to clench their teeth and really push even more so than ever before to keep that job if they do end up landing one. That's why it's like, fuck, if I'm trying to get out here and make money and live on my own, I have to deal with the job. I have to do something, etc., 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 right? What's my name? My name is Alex/Alan. People call me Alan. I like Alan. Like, not Allen, but Alan. Anyways, I digress. But it is pretty relatable with these type of jobs, and I felt bad for Scott as soon as his boss found out, hey, get the fuck out. You can take a drink on your way out, but after that, get the fuck out. You lied about your resume. I don't want a prisoner working for my shit. And I'm like, what is up with, like, workers just being pieces of shit, or people at jobs being a piece of shit towards other people like that, man? Just let the man have the job and let him try to make a good money. Anyways, so number 4, Scott's friends trying to get him back into an old job and for Scott to return. Basically what ended up happening is after he got fired, yes, people are so mean, yeah, Basically, after Scott got fired from Baskin Robbins, basically what ended up happening is he just completely turned back to crime because he was like, he was, or not turning back to crime, but basically Scott's friends are trying to tell him, we got a job online for you, and Scott turned it down a little bit, but, oh, God, it's a whole fucking thing. But yeah, basically, Scott's friends tried to explain the job, and he's like, no, I'm not having it. Yada, 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 whatever, whatever. Number 5, Hank's research after many years of it being hidden just for it to be revealed, and it's like the Yellow Jacket, right? And basically, if you guys remember, Hank's, like, research is basically apparently more important than Iron Man's, like basically more technologically advanced than Iron Man's apparently, because, I mean, well, the suits can not only go microscopic, but you can go into a whole different worlds and whatnot. Well, not whole different worlds, but you know what I mean. Like, basically, what I mean is, like, you basically can, you can go subatomic and go into a whole other dimension with the suit, so I guess it is way more powerful, but at the same time, it's also not. But, I felt bad for, like, Hank's research, because Hank was the first Ant-Man, and basically him being Ant-Man, he was able to help stop wars, he was able to do a lot of things, and he didn't want this research to go in the wrong hands, so he tried to hide it, but after so many years, the same company, if not the company, you know, he and his quote-unquote son started, he's not his actual son, but he felt like he was at a point, started up and basically figured out a way to mimic Hank's research after so long. How's Muff? Muff is doing alright. Number 6, and I really hate this part of the movie because Scott is trying to be, my bad, leaf blower, guys, a lot of that. Yep, leaf blower, guys. They always come like once a week, kind of clear things out. But, Scott, trying to be in his kid's life just for him to get shut out. And basically this moment is Scott showed up for his daughter's birthday party. And basically his mom, you know, obviously Scott's mom wanted him the fuck out of the house. Basically, she got with a police dude. I hate leaf blowers, they're so annoying. Yeah, they are annoying, but they get the job done in terms of getting rid of your leaves, you know, so makes sense on that one. Makes sense on that one. But yeah, like, I hated this moment because Scott's daughter, Scott and, you know, Scott's girl's daughter, clearly loves Scott. Like, her dad is basically, you know, her actual dad, biological dad, is basically her hero. She loves Scott, you know, her daughter loves Scott. What's the book's name? This book is just like my experience. Anything I write down, that's literally what this book's name. The My Experience Papers, Part 1. That's what I called it. For some reason, I called it that. But, I remember that scene specifically because she was like, Scott, no, you can't be here. You need to get the fuck out. You need to get out of my house. You need to start a life. And I'm like, how is somebody that just got out of prison supposed to restart and take steps like that? You know what I mean? That shit takes years. She doesn't understand it. But she clearly doesn't want Scott around the kid because of the fact that, you know, obviously, Maya, welcome back. Been a minute. Hello, John, how you doing? But I remember that scene pissed me off. I'm so happy when you answered my comment. Hey, glad I could answer. But, I got so pissed off when, she was like, she doesn't want you in her life, dude. And it's like, she clearly does if, you know, if Peanut, like, loves Scott, aka, you know, the real dad here, and if he treats him as such, like, a hero and shit, and is a cool guy, she clearly wants him in his life. You are just like, oh, you're a bad influence or whatever, even though Scott has never been a bad influence to his daughter. Never has. I mean, sure, he does bad things, he does crime and whatnot, but he's not a bad dad. You know what I mean? He just happens to be something else. He just happens to be in situations that, you know, get him tight money. back to what I was saying. I felt like that moment was just sad, you know. And even the police guy was telling him to get the fuck out of the house, like, hey, you shouldn't be here. Even though Scott was arguing with him, saying, that's my daughter, I want to be here. And it was a whole thing. And, you know, him and his girl talked outside, or it used to be his girl talked outside. And basically, they were talking about how, and it's kind of fucked up, but they are basically saying, that's a whole thing. Basically, fuck. You know, they had a whole talk, like, how about this? You go out, you start your life, you go get a job, you go be a regular person, basically. And it's like, I just got out of prison like a day ago. How am I supposed to do that? I just remember, like, I just totally was on Scott's side on that one. But anyways, Darren, the main villain, Darren just killing Frank like he's nothing is sad. Because basically Darren killed Frank because he was trying to use humans as a test subject for his Yellow Jacket project, and it was a whole thing. Leo, answer me. How is solo leveling anime was? I barely watched it. That's why I didn't really answer, because I barely watched it, right? I didn't really I didn't start from like episode 1. Maybe I did. I think I did. But like I'm really on and off with it because I'm not really super crazy about anime these days. So that's why I'm like, I don't really have much to say other than it looks kind of cool, I guess. Have you watched Last of Us? Yes, I have. Season 1, yes, I have. But Season 2, I have not. I kind of felt like the show was not worth watching without the homie Chris, so I haven't watched it since. What about the manhwa? Again, I barely read. I don't read manga all that much, / manhwas. I don't really read. So, I don't really do any of that. But anyways, number 8, basically Scott being back on the job. Let's kind of rush through this a little bit. Basically, Lewis explains the plan to Scott because he wants in on the job, because he couldn't think of any other way to get enough money to see his daughter. He couldn't think of any other way, so he just immediately turned back to crime. And I kind of felt Scott on that, but at the same time, at least he could have just straight up been a little different. He could have just tried to get another job, but at the same time, if you know the job system, guys, you know how hard it is or how long it takes to get a normal job, to get a fucking vehicle, pay for the vehicle, pay for rent, all that other sort of shit. So that's why he just turned to crime, because he's like, I can't pay all these bills that I have or all this shit I got on my back. So literally, I just can't. So I have to turn back to crime. And it's like, you know what? I can't even blame him. Anyways, Lewis being the comic character really works. I mentioned that. Scott breaking into Hank's house, doing this wild stuff just for a suit is crazy. So basically, Hank was actually focusing on Scott this entire time, watching him and hovering over his life for months, apparently, because he was trying to find a guy that could help him, you know, end the dude using his research. And it was a whole thing. And basically, the job that Scott went on was fake, but we don't know that, right? But Scott does all this shit saying, okay, we need liquid oxygen to try to hit this old school safe, you know, using that ice, basically. And all of it, not only just for the money he had, but basically the suit. The suit was in there for Scott. He was like, I gotta take this suit then, because, you know, as a criminal, it's like you take what you can. Or as someone who does, like, jewelry or robbery or whatever, you take what you can whenever you're in that scenario. Scott trying the Ant-Man suit for the first time was cool, because I remember watching Scott going really small for the first time, and like, in an ant's point of view, and it's fucking scary, bro. Like, the movements I make every day could be ginormous to a roach or ginormous to a ant. Like, even just the slightest movements, like me, you know, walking, like one footstep is like a giant walking around, basically, like Titan of the Colossus or whatever type style for ants. And I remember just watching that moment. It was really cool. Seeing how dangerous being small is actually nuts. So, for example, like, actually seeing how everything is so much a threat. Like this pencil right here. For me, it's not that bad. But for someone like an ant, and I drop it on the floor, that's like Armageddon, you know? Or, for example, I get pissed off, I get mad, I have like a rage thing, and basically I start throwing shit on the ground. That's like Armageddon for an ant, you know, to try to navigate around and try to survive. You know, and Scott kind of went through that whenever he put on the suit for the first time, so I thought that shit was kind of nutty. But anyways, Hank meeting Scott for the first time and laid on him that the heist is a ruse. Basically, I allowed that heist to happen so you can get the suit and we can do shit, and it's a whole thing. And I remember when Scott found that out, he was like, what, the heist was a ruse? You allowed me to do that? That's kind of shitty. But anyways, Darren constantly experimenting on life, on life to finally succeed. So basically, Darren is basically this crazy psychopath that really wants the yellow jacket. So he's experimenting on animals such as goats, human beings, and all that other sort of stuff, just so he can see if the shrink shit actually works. Like, he keeps doing these experiments over and over and over and over and over again. And I remember that shit really bothering me, because it's like, dude, why is Darren being such a fucking menace? Like, why is he being so evil? Like, it's just a whole thing. Anyways, Hope being so hard on Hank because she wants to be in the suit, but he denies her because of Hank's wife. So basically, in this moment, Hope, for a very long time, basically Hank's daughter's name, is basically, she lived her life like this, basically. Happy family. Then one day when Ant-Man, you know, basically Hank and his wife went out to do a mission, Hank tried to do something, but Hank's wife risked her life, basically being a hero, instead. Basically just, right? And all that other shit. Basically, she went subatomic. She never came back, and Hank lost his wife forever. But she also saved the day, right? And because of that, Hank never wants Hope to be in an Ant-Man suit to do any sort of mission for him ever, because he's the only thing he has left, like, in his world, basically. After losing his life, his daughter's kind of like a splitting image, not only of his wife, but it's like, you know, he really loves his daughter. Who doesn't? You know, who doesn't love their daughters and shit? But seeing that shit was a little wild. Anyways, watching Scott train with the Ant-Man suit was cool, but also funny as hell, because you're seeing Hope, like, do, like, these cool-ass moves on Scott, basically whooping his ass for a minute, him trying to go microscopic to fit through a locked little keyhole. Another example is, like, I think stamina training or whatever, and he's basically just going through this training montage. Without the music, we just hear the moments, like, with music in the back, but just Scott, like, just struggling really bad, and it's just kind of funny. But he slowly gets better and better and better as he goes along whenever he does the whole training. And again, the reason why I'm not showing you scenes, and I might, if I do to my experiences today, and I get to Civil War, I will show footage in that one. Like, that video, I will show footage, but for this one, I won't. But anyways, that happened. Number 17, Hope and Scott having a serious convo about themselves was hard, because let me explain, right? So basically, Hope was talking about how Hank doesn't trust me to do anything, he doesn't want me to do anything, and I always tell him, I can get in, I can secretly get in, I can do all this for you, Dad, let me help you with your research, getting it back, and all that other sort of stuff. And Scott just straight up said, the entire reason he has never let you do shit is because I'm expendable. I'm some random guy he picked up off the street. So he would rather risk me 1,000 times over than risk you one time. Because you're basically the only light Hank has left in this world. So keep it a buck with you. And I think Scott said I would do the same thing. And I completely get where Hank is coming from, because I'm also a dad with a daughter. You know. So I get where Hank's coming from. I get how I'm expendable. Like, you know, I get that shit. But that's why, Hope. You gotta understand that. But anyways, that was a serious moment, and I'm surprised they even had a serious moment considering. Well, I mean, it makes sense after training Scott for a while. It's like, well, better get to know him and shit. But anyways, Hank explains to Hope the real reason her mother died, and Scott ruining things was mad funny. But basically, Hank explaining to Hope the real reason, like your mom went subatomic, and ever since then, basically, she hasn't come back. I don't know how to get her back, and for all these years, I've been trying to find ways to bring your mother back this whole time. I'm sorry for sending you away, for a long time, so I could help cope with things and shit, but, I was really trying to do all this, try to find your mother back, and all that other sort of shit, because Hope also thought Hank just completely gave up on his wife, which was not true at all, and it was a whole thing, and I don't want to go into it, because this is supposed to be a review of the movie, not the movie, you know what I mean? But anyways, 19, Ant-Man going to the Avengers HQ, and Scott, you know what, I'm going to show this moment. I know I said I wouldn't show, like, anything, but, you know what, I want to show you guys, like, Ant-Man, alright, I want to show you guys Ant-Man going to Avengers HQ. I want to show you just what happens. Right? Let me show you. Hold on. These are ads, so let me get rid of these ads. Because basically, he goes in.
I'm a big fan. Appreciate it. Who the hell are you? I'm Ant-Man. Ant-Man? What, you haven't heard of me? No, you wouldn't have heard of me. You want to tell me what you want? I was hoping I could grab a piece of technology. Just for a few days, I'm going to return it. They need it to save the world. You know how that is. I know exactly how that is. Located the breach, bringing him in. Sorry about this.
I just love this fight because Falcon has never fought anybody in his life. I just want to show you a little bit before we kind of go back, because I already know how I kind of hate it, but I really hate how how YouTube and copyright works. I hate all of that, so it's like I can't show literally anything without it, feeling some sort of weird way, okay? So, or without copyright coming after me. So it's like I have to only show very brief of that. But Ant-Man getting into a scruffle with Falcon actually winning was actually kind of cool. Darren getting into Hank's house and scaring everybody. So basically Darren came over when Scott was done after getting the thing he needed from the Avengers HQ. It was late at night. They were talking about their plan to sneak in. And basically, Darren, Hope, and Hank and Scott were all like, who the fuck is in the house? Turns out Darren was there and basically saying, Hank, coming over, basically telling Hank, I want you to see what I have done. I finally have done it. Come over. I want you to see the Yellow Jacket Project. I want you to see that. And Hank was like, okay, I'll go there. Just so he can get, Darren out of the fucking house and another thing, and et cetera, et cetera. And Darren left after that and basically said, nah, you know what? Goodbye. I'll see you then, Hank. Pleasure to have you back, just so you can see how well I can succeed. Darren has a screw loose, by the way. For anyone wondering, he has a screw loose, complete screw loose. But anyways, 21. Scott getting his old crew together for this job was mad funny. So basically, Lewis and everybody else basically had to do this job with him. It was kind of cool. Hello, Cole Palmer. How you doing? The first episode of Scene 2 sucks. Oh, Last of Us? Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Scott seeing his daughter one last time before they start the mission, I completely understand that, because basically, like when you go out and you want to save the world and you never know if it's going to be over or not. That's basically why Scott went to go see her one last time, was because of that. So, if he never sees her again, He can get that one last look, and that's it. But anyways, seeing Scott's friends help Scott on the job is funny. Like Lewis being a security guard, was mad funny, and some other guys are being in the tech room. Hope just being close to Hank and Darren and all that other sort of shit. That was the whole thing, and just seeing that all happen was crazy. Darren showing Hank and Hope what he's done is crazy. Basically, him figuring out the project, him basically planning on Hank to betray him, Hope to betray him, and all that other sort of shit. And Darren was ready to kill Hank / everything around him. So basically, Darren, in that same moment that Hank, Hope, and all of them were in that room doing the deal, Darren was ready, basically admitted that I was originally at Hank's house to murk him. But since you were there, I didn't decide to murk him. I decided to let him go that night. And he basically was pointing gun at everybody. See, this is what happens when you fuck with me, as I'm Darren, and I'm a fucking psycho a little bit. I'm a psycho dude. I'm a psycho, so whatever, you know what I mean? But basically him doing that was crazy, yada yada yada. Ant-Man and him try to have a fight. Darren gets away a little bit in the fucking helicopter thing, and a little bit after that, Darren puts on the yellow jacket suit with Ant-Man, and they're basically fighting a whole thing with that. And I'm gonna be real, like, the entire fight with Yellow Jacket, I loved and I hated, because Yellow Jacket, the first time they fought, basically was fighting him, like, around the city, and their second fight, basically, turns out Yellow Jacket went to Scott's house, tried to use his daughter as, like, I think leverage to make, like, Ant-Man stop the fight, or it was a whole thing, and I thought that was such a bitch play on Yellow Jacket's part, because, when villains, like, use kids as, like, some type of shield or some type of thing, or whatever, I'm just like, you're a bitch. You know that? You're just a straight-up bitch. Why would you do that? I don't get it. I get it, you're a menace, you're a villain, but it's like, really, going after the kids, man? You're trash. You're pathetic. You're a whole thing. But anyways, that was a whole thing. Seeing Scott go subatomic is such a trip experience to watch, and to see him get out of was cool. Because basically, Scott is the one person that went subatomic. The same thing Hank's wife went through. And basically, the only thing that was kind of helping him get out of there was, I think either Hope or Scott's daughter, like, all he heard was her voice over and over and over again in his head. And basically, the trippy experience was, think of, like, how do I explain, like, being subatomic? I don't know how to explain it other than just show you, or try to attempt to show you. Let me see if they have any sort of thing. Okay. Actually, better yet, I got a better idea. Think of a rainbow, right? Think of a rainbow, and you're flying through that rainbow, and there's little white lines that kind of indicate, or this is a horrible example, actually. I just realized this is a horrible example. But, think of, those acid trips, or those, like, those, when people trip out in animation? Think of that, but, like, times 10. That's basically what being subatomic is. Like, you're not on a trip, you're not on a high. You get so small that you enter some sort of different dimension because you're even smaller than small. You know what I mean? So that's like a whole thing. And after, Scott and them get out of subatomic, he doesn't even remember what it was like being subatomic, and it was a whole thing. And after Scott, Hank, and Hope had that small talk about good shit for saving the day, you're a real one, you're a G, and that was the whole thing. Basically, as soon as Hope and Scott leave and close the door, and Hank was just sitting there by himself, and he decided to get up and maybe go grab a drink, Scott and Hope were just kissing. And basically, like, kissing right as they left the door, basically Scott and Hope just got it in and basically just started making out. And Hank saw that shit and basically was like, what the fuck are you doing with my kid? And Scott was like, oh, nothing, sir. Just, nothing. Just straight up nothing. I wasn't kissing her or nothing. None of that. None of that. And I love how Hank just walks away from this conversation. Scott, you're full of shit. And Scott's like, yeah, I know I'm full of shit. I know I'm not all that and whatnot and who dabadoo, you know what I mean? I know I'm not all that, man. I know. I know, and I'm sorry for not being all that, okay? I apologize, and it was a whole thing. But after that, basically Lewis telling him another job in one of the funniest ways, and that's how they close out this movie. And the reason why I rushed this last bit is because it's 35 minutes. I think that's good enough for a fucking movie review. And I'm just gonna be real with you guys. Like, I think I really got attached to Ant-Man because of the fact of how relatable this movie is for Scott. Like, for example, like what makes this movie so relatable? How hard is it to find a job, especially after being, in prison or jail for a while? How hard it is for any job to accept you after that, or even just in general, how hard it is for jobs to accept you. I related to that, and I related to Scott just wanting to be a part of his kid's life and can't because the mother makes it extremely difficult to even let that shit happen, and it's a whole thing, and or whatever. And I don't know, it's just a whole thing, and I said in my notes, I love it because of how relatable / real I felt this movie was. Like, outside of the action set pieces that I love so much with this movie or all Marvel movies, I just felt like, with it being kind of a little bit more relatable, being a little bit, like, basically this movie being more human than a lot of other Marvel movies. Because when you watch Marvel movies, they don't really go in depth with basically a man being, I mean, they do, sometimes we get bits like with Iron Man 3, other than like Iron Man 3 and maybe a few others, we don't get a whole lot of like realistic / I mean, we do get a lot of realistic / real moments in these movies, but you get my point, right? We don't see them all the time, and seeing Ant-Man kind of be that movie to kind of bring back the realism, like, fuck, Scott can't pay his bills, so he has to turn back to doing shit he didn't like to try to pay those bills or try to do those things. I bet a lot of people can relate to that, or trying to find a job, people can relate to that. So I just feel like this movie is very relatable to a lot of people, and I love how Ant-Man is like that, for a lot of people, and myself included. That's why I love this movie, is because that's just how relatable it is. It's a solid movie. Even in 2025, even after all the years later, since this is a movie that came out in 2015, all these years later, I still feel like Ant-Man is a great movie to watch. It's awesome. It has funny moments. It's relatable as fuck, and it's a whole thing, And I also like how the humor in is completely different than how other Marvel movies are, because I mentioned it to Nick in Ant-Man. I love how Ant-Man has different humor, a different style of humor than Captain America movies or Thor movies with their humor, and it's a whole thing, you know what I mean? So, yeah. But I watched this movie April 9, 2025. I thought it was fantastic. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, favorite, share the video with your friends. God bless you all. Hope you guys all have a great day. I don't know if I'm going to be doing 2 videos. I might do 2, because I definitely do feel like talking about Captain America Civil War, because there's just so much that happens in this movie. But, again, had a rough day yesterday. I think I want to take it slow. Maybe come back a few hours later or something. Or if I do, I do. If I don't talk about the movie, I don't talk about it. Regardless, I still have a lot of movies I need to talk about anyway. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching. Peace. Also, one more thing before I go. Thank you so much for 3,950 subscribers. I want to thank you guys for watching my shorts on a regular, subscribing, sharing those videos with your friends, or even my streams with your friends. Thank you for supporting my channel so much. I really appreciate it, and I really hope we can get to 4,000 subscribers pretty damn soon. All we need is 50 more subscribers now. That's the crazy part. All we need is 50 more, and we're at 4 fucking K. We're at 4,000 subscribers, so hopefully we can make it there. But anyways, see you guys next time. Peace. I'm probably copyrighted for this.